That was the longest one ever, but it got y'all ready. It got y'all excited. It got y'all on the edge of your seats. I'm so excited to see you both. I love the contrast and backgrounds that we have going on today. We've got the white on white. We've got the colorful and the plaid. We've got the pink against the majestic. I don't know, but I am so happy to see you all. Business as usual. Hi, Dee. How are you?
I'm fantabulous. How are you doing today?
I'm lovely. I feel like that was forced. Cause honey,
Literally just got off a call, literally right before you were texting me like, "Are you jumping on?" I'm like, "I am on a call right now, but I'm here and I'm in the flesh and I'm around really great people to have a really fantastic conversation. So I am good." But yes,
period. And Stacy, hello. Nice to have you as well.
Nice to be here. Thank you so much, Blair and D'Angelo, for having me on your show. I was telling Blair, D'Angelo, before you jumped on, it's Derby week for anybody that is not. I'm in Louisville, Kentucky, for everybody kind of tuning in. And this is the week where a lot of pageantry, a lot of performative Southern pomp and circumstances occurs. And generally, there's flowers and cocktails, and I'm planning to get right for Oaks Day because I usually kick it from Oaks on through. But then Blair sent me the flyer to the show, and y'all was looking real sharp, and I'm like, okay, they color coded. Like, okay, co-host, take the t-shirt off, put the go ahead on and get clean. Listen, get my edges right today, not on Thursday. Get my edges right today.
Listen, we have been known to raise the fashion bar in several spaces and caused a few tears in the past too. That's a whole nother story. But nonetheless, we're glad you are here. We're glad Dee is here. And hello, every beautiful body out there. If you all are not familiar, my name is Blair G. Hervey. I'm the founder and CEO of The Corporate Strategist. I'm joined by he's giving us not bland. He's giving us timeless. He's giving us clean. He's giving us, I don't know, but he's still my colorful co-host, my bestie and soul friend of 20 plus years. Hi, D'Angelo Crane.
Hi, Blair Harvey. I'm giving you in the office and I'm being my corporate self today. So there you go. But yes.
Ooh, that's a whole nother conversation.
It is another conversation. It is another conversation. I work in a sea of wonderful blues, whites, and ivories as I have on today. So needless to say, sometimes I acquiesce to that, but it's all good.
Interesting. Lots of whites today. And a big welcome everyone to our guest, Stacy Brooks. We're so excited to have you, and welcome everyone to the Black DEIBA Collective podcast. Do you want to get us started before we get into this juicy conversation?
Sure enough, as we do every day here on the Black DEIBA podcast, our podcast, we keep calling it a podcast. What is it? LinkedIn Live. I'm gonna call it the Black DEIBA Collective Live. That's all I'm gonna call it. Leave it at that, because it could be on Facebook or LinkedIn, and maybe one day we'll be someplace else. Anyway, every day here on the show, we do what we are asking leaders to do every day in our organizations is to check in with your employees, with your team members, whomever you're working with or engaging with on work teams with, because that's the only way we're going to continue to grow and really connect on a deeper level and learn empathy for one another. So as we do here, the art of the check-in, Stacy, how you feeling, how you living, how is your soul today, how is your heart, your mind, and your soul?
Well, first, that is such a wonderful way to start an interview. I mean, thank you so much for asking. I feel quite balanced today. I've had, a really, really good start. I have two, one high school aged and one middle school aged boy still living in the house. I have 4 sons. We kicked off the day with getting into the gym, moved around a little bit, dropped them off at school. The wife was there too. So my whole family started off in the gym this morning. I went to a coffee shop before I came back home, got a lot of work done. I'm working on a book that's called the EDI Transformation Process for Growth and Sustainability. So I got a draft of the chapter kind of halfway done this morning. And then I get to have this conversation with you two beautiful people who have invited me on their show. So I couldn't be doing any better than that.
I love that so much.
Hold up.
I was like,
You have to understand, I'm still transitioning from my last meeting, so I'm not on it as much. Okay, you're ready. You've been ready probably at 2 o'clock. I'm literally okay. Anyhow, Blair, how are you today? You're on it today. You're on fire today. It seems like. How are you doing?
I mean, I think I came out of the womb like this. I'm gonna just throw that out there. But to Stacy's point, yeah, my edges are kind of laid here. They're doing this little curly situation. I have like 2 lashes left if you look really closely on each of my eyes. But aside from that, if I'm sitting back and I'm way in control of my environment and I'm doing the things that I'm doing, I'm always feeling fine. So I'm feeling fine, feeling great. D, I just wanted you to take that deep breath. I hope you are amazing as well.
I'm great. I am good today. No complaints whatsoever. All right, Blair, introduce our guest because I'm truly excited about the topic today, who we have on.
Certainly. Well, Stacy Brooks is a scholar of Black Studies and an EDI strategist. Stacy's background includes academic, community organizing, and corporate EDI experience. Stacy has developed and honed his approach for leveraging EDI as a data-driven process. Love that. A native product function and an internal capability for teams that will drive growth and sustainability. I love all those action words. So thank you again for joining us, Stacy. Today we're talking about going from equality to equity, and are we there yet in that process? But before we actually get into that conversation that you brought to the virtual desk of TBDC, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what brought you into this work? What was that, maybe even that pivotal moment for you?
Well, it was actually quite by accident. I tripped and fell and landed in a corporation. My path that I was on was actually quite academic. I'm a scholar of Black Studies. I was in a PhD program, completing my dissertation. I'm a historian of transatlantic slave trade and slavery, the peopling of North America, and I was working on that work kind of regionally here as it relates to Kentucky. And through a lot of crazy happen circumstances, members of my committee that was very customized to what I was doing, 2 of them died of cancer, and then another of the professors abruptly left the university. So basically, I bottomed out. I didn't have a committee anymore. And so I had met some people through networking. I came to this gentleman who was a senior HR executive at another company, asked him, taking this big curriculum vitae that included every time as a grad student, I stood in front of 2 or more people and said stuff about my work. And, it was a big, like, what could I do? And he pointed me to a couple of major companies here in Louisville, Kentucky, and Humana ended up being the one that I networked myself into and began to basically carve out an education, a curriculum of myself to learn the business. There was a lot of learning, a steep learning curve. As you might imagine, a person that had not planned to work in an insurance company did not know how the business worked, and trying to figure out my way in that place, just using kind of the small bag of tools that I had, basically learning curriculum. And so through that process, I began to meet people, and that is where I learned about this domain called inclusion and diversity, being done by good folks in corporations. I, as a person that had always kind of looked from the outside in, did not think that there was that kind of work occurring inside of corporations. There's not a lot of evidence from the outside looking in that there's inclusion and diversity work in a lot of corporations. And so I came through that work kind of by accident. And I was fortunate enough to work in core HR, running a program that was specifically designed to improve the experience and create stretch opportunity and promotion for people of color and women. It was specific to Black people and women. It became people of color and women. And as you can see, is a kind of a trajectory for D&I writ large. But as a member of HR doing the diversity, equity, and inclusion work, I wasn't experiencing it to the degree that I felt I should have. And so the company that I was at, Humana, is a quite large corporation. You can do so many different types of things. And so I kind of took a hard left in my career path and decided to take a chance and join the digital health analytics organization, where I began to learn product management. agile processes and how software is developed and delivered from inception all the way out to the feedback loop and the analytics. And having had experiences thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, which today I call equity, diversity, and inclusion, I felt like, okay, well, I know how to put these pieces together and tool this so that this work becomes product work. And we begin to apply product rigor and analytics and data to it, and build a test and learn framework where not only are we doing awareness, which we see a lot of in the cultural space, but we're also doing demonstrative work that demonstrates the value, the generative value of equity, diversity as a core strategy. If you think about hiring, or if you think about market share access, you can, I'm speaking to the choir here, but I found myself kind of playing in this playground for a time and developing some, what I believe are some unique approaches to really helping an organization that wants to transform themselves through an equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy process.
Y'all can tell he's a scholar, honey. Listen.
That's so he talked too much.
Well, listen, I'm gonna say this because we want to make sure that D'Angelo says this all the time. So our audience is full of, yes, DEI professionals, women. We create a space to refuel those, but it's also full of folks who just need to increase their cultural sensitivity, cultural competency. Some folks that are just nosy, which is good too. But this is a great place for them to get some information. So feel free to share the information as you need it, but also feel free to break it down for us too.
Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anytime you think that I'm using jargon, tell me to pump my brakes, back up. I'm happy to make it more plain.
Pump your brakes, back up, Stacy. Let's break it down for the people, D. What's your question?
No, I'm just gonna ask Stacy to make sure he's using his inside Humana voice, because from working with Stacy for the last many great years, when I think about when I look to people who spoke truth to power way before I knew I had the gumption to do so, it was Stacy, and he continues to do that, to rattle, to disrupt the status quo. If you ever followed him on LinkedIn, he does that, right? And he's really talking about how do we create spaces of equity, because equality, when we think about it, is really that people all have a space to gather, right? So we all are in this space, but does it look the same when we get in this space? Do we all have the same pay when we're in a space? Do we all have the same ability to speak up when we're in this space? And are we all paid equally and respected when we speak up in these same spaces, right? And so when we think about it, I just thought about, when I think about equity versus equality, but Stacy, help us as we start this conversation, the process of equity. What does that mean? What does equity mean versus equality? And why should we be focused on equity? What does it look like? So just give us some basic things so we can have a basic definition as we have this conversation today.
Yeah, equality is just that. It's equality. It's a quality that we have, right? And maybe in a context, it's a quality that others are getting more of than some. But unless we are thinking about equity, which is an imperative to measure, right? Equity is asking a question. Equity is asking about something. It's not a quality of something. It's asking about something. So when you begin the conversation with equity, you're really asking, okay, well, where is inequity occurring in our system? How do we see it? What does it look like? How is it presenting? How is it expressing itself? And then that allows us to then, break it down, because sometimes these things are too big, they're too complex, they're too many layers. And so when we're thinking about it from the standpoint, we know that there's inequity in the system. We don't have to ask that. If we're looking find where it's creating pressure, where it's creating homogeneity, right? Where we see things that are flowing through and we see things that are being blocked, that allows us to then, you imagine the seesaw, right? To begin applying levers that make the context more equitable, right? Because equity is trying to get you to equitable. And that also means that you're going to have to continue to look at it over and over again. If something is just a quality, right? It's just a quality of something. Well, it can remain that in your mind. It can remain that kind of continuously. that's not how our systems work, right? We have to continuously like relook at them and readdress them, because as we're doing work for some, we probably are blind to what's happening with another group or dimension, and we can't do it all at the same time. So that's why I have a preference to equity, because it demands that we're measuring, and it puts us in a continuous process where we're always trying to check ourselves.
That's a great point. You mentioned having a smaller bag of tools when you came into the corporate space. How do you think that impacted your journey from equality to equity, whether it's pay or whatever the things may be for you in your personal journey?
That's a really, really good question. I appreciate that, because I felt when I came, so as an academic, before my journey shifted and I began, I entered corporate spaces, I felt very, very big, very confident. Mm-hmm. A very, very confident man who had studied. I spent lots of time in the library. I know my information, mm-hmm. right? It's not about facts and stuff like that. Coming into Humana, that wasn't appreciated. That's not what was valued. And so my ego and my sense of bigness shrunk down really, really quickly. I felt like a very, very small fish in a large ocean. And I felt very appreciative and grateful that I even had the opportunity to be there. You start that place like, man, everything is so nice. I feel so grateful just to be here and to be able to, I ain't gonna lie, I'm vain. I like to dress nice. Yes. So I got this job, it's downtown. I get to dress nice. Yeah. Those things feel really good, especially when you thought that you was getting ready to be unemployed, Oh. So I transitioned to feeling kind of really big and knowing what I was going to do to feeling really small, and then feeling kind of, well, I'll just take what I can get. But I'm sure that you probably have some follow-up questions about kind of how that changed along the way, because as I learned the business, as the jargon didn't sound foreign, as I began to understand how we make money, and certainly as a core HR, corporate HR specialist, I'm looking at our data and I'm seeing what it looks like from that standpoint. I start to increase and feel like, oh, they need me here. they don't.
Yes.
They don't have this on check. They don't have this going on. They need me here. So I started to feel really, really good about myself. That's probably where D'Angelo starts to that's where we probably crossed paths, because I felt quite confident that what I was bringing to the organization is exactly what they needed, because I didn't see it being covered in any places. Because we could be doing really good things and still need to really, really check ourselves in a lot of places. And there was this inability to kind of balance those two things out, or this inability to kind of say it when it needed to be said. And so, I kind of found my way into that space. And then once I got all the way towards kind of the latter part of my career there, I felt like, look, y'all make some decisions about me, or I can do this anywhere.
That's right.
What I know that I can do, what I've learned here working with you, this company, that I've really tried to contribute very, very effectively for, sometimes against the energy of the leaders that I'm working for. Mm-hmm. I can do this anywhere.
Absolutely.
So it was a kind of a revelation, but it definitely was a journey that, did not start with that kind of confidence.
Excellent. Good for you.
And I love this conversation, because I think about this is what we really should start doing when we go into organizations, is already having the confidence. Because if an organization hires you in, they already know that you have that skill set, right? And how do we go in and already be intentional about disrupting? I mean, I always say I'm no longer going to adapt to spaces. I'm going to create spaces that adapt to me, because that's what you brought me to this organization for, particularly when we're thinking about this culture work that we're doing. So talk to me a little bit more about, when you think about organizations that are effectively equitable, what are the 3 things they're doing right when you think about the work you've been doing? What are those top 3 to 4 things that you're seeing that make an organization A+ in equitability, if that's even a word, for being equitable?
Well, they have an awareness of what their relationship has been to a community historically. right? There are some organizations that haven't engaged, and here they come here at a moment of time, and now they want to try to build trust and build connections. So those companies that I see doing it right, you can tell in their rhetoric that they have an acknowledgement and an awareness of if they've been showing up or if they haven't been showing up, and they're willing to start right there, because there's a thawing process that has to occur where somebody is warming up and then offering and trying to build that bridge, that relationship bridge. So it starts with honesty and transparency. If you ever been in a relationship and somebody's trying to move on before they don't apologize, like, I'm the kind of person that I can't move on. I gotta have that conversation. And then once we do that, I'm cool. You got me. Let's go. Let's roll. Communities are the same way. They've been affected, or they know a company hasn't been there. So that's one. Two, they have a sense of, there's this really wonderful book called My Grandmother's Hands. I want to say that the author's name is
Resna.
Yes. And he talks about the legacy of trauma that we all endure because of we living in this place called the United States of America. And those things are resonant and expressed in communities as well. Companies that are doing it right are engaging those communities with full awareness of that trauma. They're checking themselves and they're entering those spaces as partners, as co-creators, and they're showing reciprocity with those organizations. They're sharing the information that they're using to build products with them. They're bringing them along in the development process from the inception of the idea all the way out to the usability of it and everything like that. So they're not just extracting from communities, right? They're not doing this vampire capitalism model. They're doing this shared stakeholder capitalism model. And so those are some of the things that you see. They're being open about who they've been. They are aware of their own or community's potential trauma, and they're bringing the community along. They're doing it in co-creation.
I'm over here taking notes, D. I'm like, okay, what is it? It's an OAB. So being open, they're much more aware, and they're bringing folks along. That's very, very helpful. I love how, going back to you and your journey, you made some decisions at some point in your career that said, this moment in my career is not going to be fair to me, and it may not be equitable to me if I don't do X, Y, and Z. So I love how you made a decision also to put the onus on yourself to say, I'm going to learn the business. I had to write these down. Learn the business. You developed a niche, and then you created a value for yourself that either made you indispensable or it was quite transferable. So you could leave that organization, do that same thing really big, really well, identify those gaps really big, really well, or you can do it on your own, which it looks like you decided to do. I also love how you talked about thought leadership. D'Angelo said that, you can see some of these things on your LinkedIn. Most recently, you posted, while they dance around the Forbes number, asked to see the numbers that matter. And some of those numbers you mentioned were Black male hiring and promotion, Black associate engagement index, Black leadership representation, and many others. What other data should organizations be looking at? Because you said before that equity is a measurable thing, right? What other data, maybe just two other things, should organizations be looking at?
They should look at they should look at what monies they are spending. So how the investment portfolio, what is getting greenlit, and what is that proportional to other things that are getting, what type of new innovations are being incepted, right? Count the number of different innovations that are being funded within a company. Those types of things that you can put data and energy behind, right? So what type of, how many test and learns are occurring? How many connections or how robust vis-a-vis kind of trainings, connections do you have between your corporate inclusion and diversity and your perhaps your AI technology, right? Are you looking at making those bridges, and what are the different kind of measurable incremental things that you can count on that tell you that you're moving in the direction that you want to go. So those are a couple of those things. If you're doing A/B testing around looking at a requisition, how many of those are you doing in what different spaces? Are you doing it for entry level? Are you doing it for senior level? And what are you seeing in return when you tweak the language? Those are the types of things that you can look at. But I would look at stuff that demonstrates money behind energy and investment. So how much investment, how many startups, like those kinds of things that require green light and finances behind them.
Oh, those are great. Thank you so much for that, Stacy.
No, it reminds me of, I think I heard a story once about how when they were doing testing on the smartphones, they did not test against people's faces who look non-white, right? And so how equitable processes includes everyone who are going to be using the phone to do the testing on how we think about it differently. So really quickly, as I think about that, who do organizations need to have at the table to create an equitable organization? Who needs to be looking at this, deciding this, and changing those systems, or thinking about those systems? Who needs to be at the table, to make this happen?
Critics. You have to have people that are critical. Right. So you can't have a culture where everybody is just like bought in, like, yeah, let's do it. And everybody's just flowing. You have to have people that be like, hold up, wait a minute. Maybe let's put some black in it. There has to be somebody there to say that we're not really we're not thinking about everybody. Like, it sounds good, but let's apply it here. Let's apply it there. I worked at a company for so many years. They did no research on a community that it's 2 miles away from them.
Right.
It's a healthcare company. We're not doing any research on them at all. There is not a bigger blind spot than that. So those are the kinds of things, like, you have to have people that are critical, and you have to understand that their critique is designed for you to synthesize, and so that we can be better.
In the words of Ice Cube, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. You said it.
You know what? I know. Moving forward in all of my consulting conversations, I'm going to hit them up with the hold up, wait a minute, put a little black in it.
Put a little boot to it. Hold on. Okay, we're gonna do that. Put a little black in it. Now.
I love it. Yes. Thank you for breaking that down for us. You have given us some really good knowledge, some great chunks of things that can be applied, some things that folks can definitely take into their next meeting. So we greatly appreciate that. We like to leave a little space for some fun questions. D'Angelo, did you have any other serious questions?
No. Let's go to the fun questions. Go for it.
Okay. So we love to ask just some rapid fire questions just to get a sense of who you are, if that's okay, Stacy.
Okay. Oh man, you're gonna find out who I am. That's all right. Here we go.
Nothing too deep. You should ask him some of those questions from yesterday, some of those Louisville.
Oh, I got one, but go ahead. You go first.
Oh, okay. Well, then
I'll go first. It's Derby week. So Derby or Oaks? Which one do you like better?
Oaks. I'm Oaks all day. I love Oaks.
Okay.
Well, then I'll ask your question from yesterday. That's my favorite question. Yeah. How do you pronounce the city that you live in?
So the story of why is probably more interesting.
Okay.
So I've been here 20 years.
Okay.
And when I moved here, it was kind of begrudgingly. I have to admit that I did not want to move to this state. I'm from Chicago and I did not know this place. And I was giving a warning by my black drill sergeants about it. So I came kind of kicking and screaming. Okay. So for 5 years, I said Louisville. Ooh. I did. For 5 years.
That's disrespectful.
In protest. I was in full protest.
Yeah.
Then once I became a full-time student at the University of Louisville, I changed to Louisville. I said Louisville all the way through college.
Okay.
And then once I graduated, I started having children here in the state, got married. I said, forget it. I just say Louisville.
Hallelujah.
She gets upset with me because I be like, I'm from Louisville, and everyone, and when I go to other places, people are like, "That's why you say it like that way." They call it Louisville, and I was like, "No, I'm from Louisville. I'm that person."
D'Angelo thinks he's slick. He know he doing it in protest.
Basically. We appreciate you. Those are just a couple of fun, quick questions for you. Dee, do you have a shout out for us today?
Yeah, my shout out of the day is to our good friend Adam Jackson, who's another truth teller, truth slayer out there, who's doing some great work in the DEI space at Humana. So kudos to Adam if he's ever watching. We definitely need to book him for the show. So that is my shout out of the day.
Thank you.
Nice. I love Adam too. Good dude.
That was my alarm telling me I need to take my vitamins. Shout out to Adam as well, and to every single person that's out there watching. Stacy, thanks for joining us and for dropping some knowledge. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Blair, D'Angelo. Thank you so very much for inviting me to your wonderful and so much fun show. Thank you so much.
Excellent. And to everyone out there, please make sure you join us every single day at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you are interested in being a guest, it doesn't matter if you are formally in this DEI space, you've been affected by this space. If you are a Black person that just has something to say, we want to hear your voice. Please make sure you message us and we will talk to you all very soon. Have a great afternoon. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.